at this. Fantastic.
Welcome to Making More Money for You with Magnus Carter. Whether you feel that you don't have enough money to start investing or are under the preconceived notion that investing is only for the wealthy, Magnus and his expert guests are here to help you. Now here is your host, Magnus Carter.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. I'm your host, Magnus Carter. Thank you for tuning in to the Making More Money for You show. And today I have it's going to be an awesome show. I have a very talented and very successful person on here, but wasn't always successful. So we're going to hear about his story, and we're going to get right into that in a second. I want to thank my guest last week for definitely showing up. That content with Joe Templin was wonderful, especially about getting your mindset and getting into some of the best habits you can for investing and investing sharply. But that actually brings me to my guest this week. We're gonna start taking you pretty much literally to the next level and what that actually means. Today is my guest is Kevin Palmieri of Next Level University. Welcome to the show, Kevin.
Magnus, thank you for having me, my friend. We had a wonderful little conversation behind the scenes, so I'm excited to see where we go in front of everybody else.
Oh, absolutely. That's one thing about this show. We don't know where we're going to go and what topics we're going to talk about. And that's what kind of makes it kind of more fun and not really your traditional investing show.
Yeah. You got to keep things fresh.
Oh, always. There's always constant new developments, and there's tricks and changes that are gone. They happen like on a daily basis, even hourly basis, especially in IT and in the field that you're doing with personal coaching and whatnot, and Next Level University. That I can't wait to start getting into that part. But can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Kevin?
Yeah. So today I am the CFO, the co-founder, and the co-host of Next Level University. We are a global top 100 podcast. We actually recorded our 1090th episode the other day. We have listeners in 125 plus countries, and I'm blessed to be able to do this for a living. This is my job. I have a company that runs through the podcast, which at one point was quite literally just a dream for me. And now I get to work from my pajama bottoms every day, which is wonderful.
Oh, wow. How long did it take you to get to close to 2,000 episodes?
So we started recording in April of 2017. And like everybody else, we started with one episode, and then eventually we got to two. One of our mentors, Evan Carmichael, challenged us. He said, "You guys are too good. You should be doing more episodes." So we went up to another episode, and then we kept going, and there's 7 days in the week. So we stopped at 7. And, it's interesting, Magnus, because I believe that if you're focused on value, you got to add value as much as humanly possible. So that's why we do so many, honestly.
Okay, that's great. Now, when you're doing your podcast, do you have any problems trying to find valuable content for your listeners?
That's a great question. We don't do guest interviews anymore because for us, it just didn't make as much sense. There's a lot of people out there now who have taken success principles and they've kind of broken them up into, if it's meant to be, it'll be, or everything happens for a reason, or, it'll all work out eventually. And I don't believe in that. I think you have to show up and do the work. Now, what I will say is, and to your credit, your audience very well, because you and I were talking behind the scenes. Yes. We have a very good understanding of our audience. So we just ask ourselves, what is our audience going through? Where they are right now? What's something that they're struggling with? What's something that they're going to struggle with? What's something that we can raise their awareness to? It's definitely a challenge to come up with content that consistently, but it's a challenge that I like having. And I try to use a lot of stories from my life to bring value to the listeners.
Okay, that's great. That's what that's what I do here, and that's the purpose of the books. And that's one of the best things that I found out about doing this. It's ever evolving. Mm-hmm. I can have like I actually have the next couple shows planned out, but so much can happen between that now and then, but that might change. You might have to move a show here, move a show there, because something more important comes up. Now, do you find the same thing when you're scheduling out your podcasts?
So unlike many people, and this is a dangerous game we play, but we record 7 episodes on Monday, and one of the episodes we record on Monday drops on that Wednesday.
Okay.
So we don't have like a lot in the tank. For us, it's we show up, we just lock ourselves in the studio, we do our 7 episodes, and it goes Wednesday, Friday, and that's kind of how it flows for us. So no, if we record it, it's going out. That's our rule. If we record it, it's going out as scheduled. We can always talk about any changes, but for us, it's different, right? Because the success fundamentals and the success principles, they're not really ever changing as much. And there's a lot of places you can go when it comes to habits and consistency and relationships and all that.
Okay. All right. That's great to know. It's just more or less finding what that person or your audience that you're trying to get to is, you get the point across to their level. Am I correct?
Yep. And the other thing too is, and I'm sure it's similar for you, I'm learning so much about myself, which then I can say, okay, I didn't know this when I started this journey. So if I knew this in the beginning, I would be in a vastly different place. So let me share this. That's another important part of investing in yourself, is when you invest in yourself, you can add value to your audience, whoever your audience is out there.
Oh, absolutely. I've been finding every opportunity or every chance is definitely a learning experience, but I've been learning more from my failures than I have been about my successes.
Yeah. I know those feelings well. There's been many failures over the years for us, and some of the best lessons I've ever learned came from pain.
Oh, absolutely. That's, it's one of the things that people don't want to go through, but that's definitely one of the ones that are overlooked. But once you go through it once or twice, it's never the same way.
Yeah.
And if you go in thinking it's the same way, you're losing out.
I don't, and I always talk about this with our team. I don't care about people making mistakes. If you're doing something for the first time, I expect you to make mistakes. Right. When we're making the same mistakes over and over and over, and we turn those mistakes into a habit, that's when things get a little muddy. But if you're doing something for the first time and you get it right, that's more luck than anything, I would say. I expect to make mistakes on the first time doing something. And to your point, I think it's important to go in with that mindset, at least, so you're not super affected when you do make mistakes.
Right. And not going in with the mindset of actually it going to be perfect.
Right.
You're going to waste a lot of time. You're going to waste a lot of energy, a lot of resources doing it that way.
Yeah. And there's no such thing.
No, there's no such thing as perfect or even close to being perfect. Is more or less, do you get what you're communicating across? If you do, is it done very well, or can it be improved upon?
Yeah.
Which brings me to one question that maybe not a lot of my listeners are familiar with this, and your listeners may be tuning in as well, is where did Next Level University come from? How did you think about this? And, what was going on in your life that made you want to go out and work and do things on your own?
It's very interesting. When I was 25, I was quote unquote successful. I had a high paying job. My girlfriend was a model. I had just done a bodybuilding show, so I was in the best shape of my life. I had a sports car, a new apartment. I had all these amazing things, and I was pretty miserable. I think a lot of people have that later in life. I feel pretty blessed that happened to me in my mid-20s, because I had a quarter life crisis instead of a midlife crisis, which I think helps me. But my goal was to make as much money as humanly possible. And we turned into a new year, and I was the foreman for a weatherization company. So weatherization is, we go into a building and it's our job to make it more energy efficient. Okay. Now, we worked predominantly for the state and the government. So we worked in big schools, we worked in fire stations, police stations, libraries, town halls, state-owned buildings like that.
Right.
And I got a promotion to a foreman. And I was like, this is awesome. I want to make as much money as possible. So this is perfect. I was getting paid anywhere from $60 to $120 an hour, depending on where we were working. For a 26-year-old kid with no college degree, that's pretty darn good. That's
really good.
All right, I'll take that. I'm all for that. And I remember that year was just a blur for me, because most of the work we did, Magnus, was on the road. So I lived in New Hampshire. Most of my work was in New Jersey.
Okay. That's not a daily commute there.
No. So I was living in hotels from Sunday night until Friday morning. I'd work an 8-hour day Friday, and then I'd drive home. And that was my life, straight from the suitcase to the washer, to the dryer, to the suitcase. That was my weekend. And I remember we got to the end of the year, and I looked back at my calendar, and I'd been on the road for 10 months out of the the 12 months every single week of those 10 months. And I had my final pay stub and I opened it up and I made $100,000. And I was like, yes, I did everything I wanted. And then I had this feeling of just emptiness. Nothing changed. I thought it would fill the voids that I had within me, the money. I thought that was going to fix things. And in that moment, I realized that for most of my life, I had lived unconsciously. The opposite of unconscious is hyperconscious. So I started a podcast called the Hyper Conscious Podcast. That was Next Level University long before Next Level University was a thing.
Oh, wow. Okay. So let's go back. Let's rewind this a couple of seconds here. What got you in the mindset that you needed more money? You needed more stuff. You needed more all this. Where did that mindset come from?
I was raised by my mom and my grandmother in a single parent household. Basically, my dad wasn't around. I didn't meet my dad until I was 27. Okay. So that was a start for me of lack, scarcity, not good enough. And it was fairly routine to hear my family talk about how are we going to pay rent. So that instilled in me at a young age made me realize, well, if I have money, then I don't have to worry about that.
Okay.
If I have money, then I don't have to be disrespected. If I have money, I'll feel confident. I think that's what it was for me is I thought if I had money, just check off the box, all this other stuff will kind of take care of itself. And I think that at the time, I didn't understand the difference between happiness and fulfillment. Happiness is results-based. If this interview goes well with Magnus, I'll be happy. I'll look back and say, nice, I did a great job. Regardless of how this interview goes, I'll be fulfilled in the process because I'm doing something I love in alignment with the person I'm trying to become. I think I was playing for happiness. And when I figured out, yeah, you're happy for 5 minutes, but then you go back to, okay, what's this all for? I think that's why it happened. Yeah.
Okay. So you were getting the emotional detachment there.
Yeah.
Your mind and your wallet were on two separate journeys.
Yes.
If you will.
The wallet was way ahead of the emotions in the mind. The mind was behind. It just assumed this is all going to work itself out.
Okay. Well, I've done the same thing. We probably crossed paths at least sometime because in those last couple of years, because I was in the same situation as you were. I was always living out of a suitcase, and I did a lot of work in New Jersey and a lot of work in the New England states, but in hospital environment. So we probably ran in in the same town or same state at the same time, which is if you think about it, that's really the odds are really against that.
Yeah. Yeah. Very low, very low. Now we're chatting today about other things.
Absolutely. And it seems that even when you grew, how far did you grow from working for the paycheck to where your podcast started taking off?
So what happened was, and this was like an overnight thing, at least it seemed overnight. After I made the money and I realized I don't want to do this anymore, I was mentally out. I don't want to travel anymore. This hotel thing, I'm done with it. I'm not doing this anymore. Like I am so over this. So almost overnight, I stopped caring about my job and I would show up late and I would leave the job site early and I didn't care anymore. And eventually what happened though, Magnus, is I was doing my podcast, but it was just a passion project. I had no business acumen. I didn't expect to win. It was just, I like having conversations with people. Let me do this. But I started to get messages from people. People would message me and say, this episode was awesome. It changed the way I'm thinking. I'd have episodes with my friends and we would have these super deep, life-changing, relationship-changing conversations. And I'm thinking to myself, this is something. Like this has to be something. And I just kept getting more burnt out going to a job that I hated. And what eventually happened was I was in New Jersey. My alarm went off at like 5:15 in the morning. I had to be at the job for like 7. I wake up, I slide to the edge of the bed. I'm lacing up my work boots. And the best way to explain it, Magnus, is there's 10 TVs on in my head at the same time, and every single one is on a different station. And it's just limiting belief after limiting belief. You're stuck at this job forever. You're never going to make $100 an hour anywhere else. Like you got lucky to get this. If you do leave, what will your friends think? What will your family think? And what do we think we're going to fall into a plush bed of podcast success? That's most likely not going to happen. We're not going to go start a successful business off of the podcast. And in that moment, I felt that if I was to take my life, I would take my problems with me. And that was the rock bottom. There's really nowhere else to go from there. So I messaged my best friend, and he's now my business partner. And I told him what was going on. I said, I'm struggling. I'm dealing with it. I'm having these dark thoughts. I don't know what to do. And he said, you've changed so much over the last couple of years, but your environment has stayed the same. I think you need to change your environment. So I ended up leaving my job and then going full-time into what we're doing today. And from there, it took like another 3 years of working every single day, of posting on social media, of having people on the show, trying to get clients. So in total, before we actually like made sustainable money, it was probably 3 years after I left my job and 4 years total.
Wow. Okay. And during that time, that had to be very, very trying. And wow, I can't articulate the words to actually do that, because one, I haven't been through that, so I can't imagine what you were going through.
It was
So
very much just the early entrepreneurial stuff. I couldn't pay rent. There was 2 years in a row I couldn't get my girlfriend Christmas presents. My car broke down and I couldn't get it fixed. $35,000 in credit card debt. Very much like whatever it takes to sustain the mission. That's pretty much what it was in the beginning. It was very challenging.
okay, well, with great challenging and whatnot. So is at that point there, what made you stop and think about not doing that, not taking your life? What made you think about actually turning that one television off and actually focusing on making one of the TVs bigger, like a bigger screen or a projection TV, of going down the road of the entrepreneurship?
My business, well, he was my friend at the time. I think he did something for me that I didn't realize at the time. He gave me permission. Imagine if I reached out to somebody who had limiting beliefs. Imagine that. Imagine if I reached out to somebody and I said, hey, I'm struggling. I'm having these dark thoughts. I don't know if I can do this job or life anymore. And they just said, well, Kev, you're probably having a bad week. Nobody really likes their job. Maybe it'll get better on Monday. My life would look completely different. So I think Alan gave me the permission to take a big chance. And he also gave me the perspective that the future could be brighter. And that's really, Magnus, I didn't know if we would make it. I didn't know if we'd be successful, but I did know if we did, it would all be worth it. I knew all the work would be worth it. And once I bought into that, what else was I going to do? I said, I can do this. Like, I can show up every day. I don't know where we'll end up, but when you go all the way to heck no, I think it's easier to go all in on heck yes.
Okay. You brought up Alan. Alan is your co-founder, isn't he? And
Yes.
your co-host?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So let's talk about that relationship for a little bit. How did that relationship start, and how did the relationship between you and Alan, flourish? We'll go with flourish because it's a better term, into what you have now today.
So I went to middle school with Alan.
Okay.
And we were friends in middle school. We both had bowl cuts because that's what people were doing when we were in middle school. And I was good friends with Alan. I went to his house. I played spin the bottle with him, one other kid from our grade, and then all the popular girls. And I was like, this is great. My life is going to be amazing if this is what it is right now. And then we spread out during high school because Alan was extremely intelligent and I was a jock who didn't really care much for school. Alan went off to WPI, Worcester Polytechnical Institute, one of the best technical schools, and I didn't go to college at all. So we very much became polar opposites. Okay. I ended up running into Alan at a party, and he had left his job, and this was before I left mine. He left his job. Okay. He had a beautiful girlfriend, and he was an entrepreneur, and he was on social media, and he was building a business. And that was when we reconnected. And from that moment, he's been mentoring me. I just didn't know it at the beginning. I don't think I really understood that he was mentoring me. He was my first podcast guest. Okay. So he came on the show. He was the first person I ever had on. And it's been very much, a lot of people told us, like, if you're going to do a business partnership, make sure you have your paperwork in order because you guys aren't going to last. Like, no business partnerships really last. But Alan and I have the same core values. We have the same core beliefs, and we have the same long-term core aspirations of bringing self-improvement to the masses. Our core values of humility and work ethic and consistency and kindness and character first, they're the same, right? And our beliefs are that self-improvement can change the world. So we're very blessed because we're very aligned. And our ultimate goal is to make each other better. So we've had arguments, of course, but it's never been anything bad, ever. I'm very blessed. I'm very grateful. And there's nobody I'd rather be on the mission with, for sure.
Oh, that's wonderful. It's very hard to find somebody that you're willing to take that step with, that partnership with.
Yeah.
Especially when you find out that you do align and you have the same goals and the same endpoint in in your future. And I found out through doing the same thing as myself is I would actually have the same issues trying to find a business partner because they would like to skimp on certain things or not do it a certain way, and it's not right and it's not wrong. It's not really wrong, but it's not it changes my values.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do that.
Yeah. It's so important. It's so important. I think that you got to understand at the end of the day that finding a good business partner is possible, but you gotta be the best version of you. And you have to figure out, this is the other thing too. I think there's just a lot of ego in business.
Right.
And there's a lot of ego. I wanted to think I was number one in the beginning. I wanted to be like, this is my show and this is my business and I know everything. And when it came down to us really forming a business, I said, Alan, you should be the CEO. I shouldn't be. Like, you're the guy. You're the visionary. You should be charting this course. So I think part of it is you have to leave your ego at the door. If it's better for the world, if it's better for the business, if it's better for the team, then it's better for me and it's better for my family and it's better for everything. You got to leave your ego at the door when it comes to many of the decisions, which is challenging.
Oh, and we can actually take everything that you just said, we just talked about in the last 5 minutes, and it doesn't have to just be about business.
Right.
That's one of the best things. People treat personal life, love life or passion life, whatever you want to call it, and professional life differently.
Yeah.
They have different values for each one of them.
Yeah.
But all the same values are incorporated across the board.
Yeah, that's true. If you can, I say this all the time. I try to treat my life like a business in a lot of ways. Of if you're tracking, your KPIs in business, what are your KPIs for life? The number of fun, unique experiences with your partner. That's such an important thing to track. The number of deep conversations, the number of date nights, whatever it is.
Right.
If you treat your life like a business, you will be more successful, guaranteed. Or tracking your workouts or whatever it is. That's such an important key to life, I think.
Absolutely. And the last week's show, Joe Temlin, we talked about that. It was one of the best things that he said is it's hard to get from 0 to 1.
Yeah.
I took that one to heart. I'm going to actually start using that and keeping that philosophy from then on. And also the compounding effect.
Yeah.
You do one small thing. One small thing turns to 2.
Yep.
2 goes to 3.
Yep.
Goes to 4. But a lot of people I've talked to and spoke about the books or even interviews that I've been on as well, and I'm sure you've seen it, is people overlook all this. They start all the way, at the mid to upper stratosphere type of stuff when ground level stuff isn't set up, and they wonder why they fail.
It's hard. I think the awareness is, I think a lot of people, they just don't have the awareness, and they go to what they know, and what usually isn't the beginning steps. It's somewhere along the journey. So it's because I know in the beginning, Magnus, I didn't really know anything about business. I remember having that conversation of like, what's a profit margin? What's gross? What's net? I didn't know any of that in the beginning. So for me, I think it was kind of like blissful ignorance in a way where I said, I don't know anything. Just teach me everything. Just assume I know nothing because there's a chance that I might not know it, and I think you got to figure out where your foundation starts. Everybody's foundation starts at a different place, but make sure it's sound. Make sure it's sound, it's strong, and it's built on concrete, not sand. Because if it's on sand, it won't last very long.
Exactly. And that's where you got to start checking your ego.
Yes.
And that's
100%.
where that issues come into place. And I've seen that and I've been through that.
Yeah.
You check your ego. It's like, oh, I know this and we're going to skip this part. And, 10 steps later, you're going back to before that step and you're starting all over again.
Yeah. Back at square one.
So that's actually wonderful. And, it's, sorry, I was just time is flying by already.
No worries. No worries.
Well, no, I appreciate that. So we did talk about quite a bit of things, and out of meeting up with Alan till now, what has been the biggest game changer for you?
Under two things right off the top: understanding numbers and
Okay.
understanding time perspective. If what we do is we literally have it broken down to, I track our listens and I track our finances every day.
Okay.
We reverse engineered what goals we want to have by 2036, and we break it down to a daily growth rate. If we're
Okay.
in the green, we're making progress. If we're in the red, we're not making progress. And that helps me get rid of emotional decisions. It's like, this is what the data says. Let's follow the data. And then the other thing is understanding, to your point, the compound effect. Yeah, it might not seem like it's working right now. A lot of the things we're doing right now that we just started aren't working, but we're also now getting more listens in a day than we got in the first year. It's just,
Right.
it's catching up now because the compound effect is catching up. So yeah, understanding that right now is not necessarily a good indication of the future, at least
Right.
in our business, what we're doing. That's a very important distinction for me because it helps me take the emotion out. A lot can change in a month. A lot can change in a year. Everything can change in 5.
Absolutely. And we'll get into a little bit more time perspective, after a break. We're actually almost at break time already. We've already went through the first half of the show. We talked about
Cruising.
exactly, and it's going by fast. It's a great conversation. I'm not gonna, and fantastic and wonderful content that we have for everybody out there. We're gonna actually go back and take a break, but we've covered so many things. We covered about where you came from. That there's actually help out there, and you didn't give up. That's one of the biggest things about doing this is you can't give up on
Mhm.
yourself, on the thought of anything, friends, family. And I've seen, even from any type of, you know, background in your home. Thank you for sharing that, by the
Of
way.
course.
It's there's help for everybody out there, and anybody and everybody has an opportunity to do this. They just have to find their way to get it done.
Mhm.
And with that, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back with more with Kevin. We're going to go into a little bit more of where he's at now, where it might go. So thank you for tuning in, everybody. You're on Voice America, the Making More Money show with you with Magnus Carter and Kevin Palmieri. We'll be right back.
You're clear.
Excellent.
Oh, it's going by so fast.
It went by super fast.
I looked down. I said 24 minutes. All right. No way.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
That's wonderful. Do that, stupid phones. But anything you want to touch on the second half that we didn't get to, or we missed on the first half?
Nope.
Okay.
I'm digging it.
All right.
I'm following your lead. You tell me where to go, I'll go. I dig it.
Excellent. It has gone by way too fast.
Where are you in the world, Magnus?
I'm actually in Pennsylvania,
Pennsylvania.
Northeast Pennsylvania. I lived in New York for quite some time, and I moved back to here to get closer to family.
Okay. I've been to Pennsylvania once. I don't remember. Wilkes Barre, is that in Pennsylvania?
I'm actually an hour south of there.
I worked there for like a month, I think.
Okay.
Went to
Not
the
much.
casino a couple times.
That's all that's there, and some good
Yeah.
the small mom and pop places to eat. That's pretty much all it's known for.
I remember we went and got these like Philly cheesesteaks. I mean, they weren't Philly cheesesteaks, they were cheesesteaks, and it was like, this is a life-changing experience for me. It was some of the best food I've ever had. I don't remember where it was though.
Look into that. There's quite a few places up there that have good cheesesteaks.
Mm,
They're mainly known up that way for their pizza.
really?
Yeah, their brick oven pizzas and sheet pizzas and whatnot.
Coming back, gentlemen.
Okay.
You're listening to Making More Money for You with Magnus Carter. If you have any questions for Magnus or his guests, join us on the show at 866-472-5789. That's 866-472-5789. Now back to the show. Here is Magnus Carter.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Making More Money for You show. I'm your host, Kevin. Not Kevin. I'm Magnus Carter. My guest is Kevin Palmieri from Next Level University. In the first half of the show, we went through a lot of different things. We went through Kevin's background, what made him decide to actually start Next Level Universe, and his transformation from going from a job that's 9 to 5 to a very slow, very low time and very dark time, and where he's actually coming out now into the podcast world and media, starting to become a media giant. Welcome back to the show, Kevin.
Thank you very much, my friend. I don't know if I'm a media giant yet. I like that, but I think we got a ways to go before we get there, but I appreciate the compliment.
Oh, you're welcome. You're working there. You're starting to climb the ladders.
We are.
You're getting close to the 2000 podcasts. You do coaching, you're doing, live seminars and whatnot. And, and you're worldwide already.
Yeah. Which is weird. That's weird for me too. It's like, again, I don't know. I think I said this behind the scenes. I didn't know we were going to end up where we are. If I said I reverse engineered all this, I would be lying. I just showed up and tried to do the right things as consistently as possible. So,
you brought up a great point. Consistency.
oh yeah.
Consistency is key to a lot of life-changing things. Habits are formed with our consistencies, our money, how much money we keep on hand. Where did you learn your values to be consistent?
I think one of the things for me was fitness. I mean, I started working out. So I'm 33 now. I started working out when I was 16, and I understood at a fairly high level, the more consistent I am, the better results I'm going to get. And when I started being an entrepreneur, that was something that was already ingrained in me. I understood that, but Alan really pushed me to be more consistent. He said, read the compound effect. That's your homework. Like, before anything, read the compound effect and understand what that means, because there's two of us. If we both work 7 days a week forever, we will get further than 99.9% of people, because we'll have the compound effect and we started early. So yeah, that's part of it. And the other thing too is the way our business and our team is set up, everybody can see my habits. So we have a dashboard where if you're on the team, Magnus, you can see exactly what Kevin's doing. You can see what Alan's doing. I can see what Magnus is doing. And at the end of the day, it spits out a percentage. And if you get 100%, that means you get everything done. If you don't, then maybe you didn't get as much done as you want. So I get a feedback every day when I look at my peak performance tracking. So that's another thing too. It helps you be consistent. And there's the accountability of other people can see it too.
Oh, absolutely. I found out having an accountability partner or a team of people, from starting writing books till now, I still meet with my accountability group.
Yeah.
We meet on Tuesday mornings. We talk about, not everybody can join. It's understandable because of life, but we still keep into communication with each other, and we're making sure that we're doing what we need to do to move the ball forward, if you will.
Yeah. Nobody wants to let down the team. Nobody wants to let down the team. It's a good pause. I mean, again, the pressure, depending on where you are, the pressure is personal, but it's good to have a little bit of pressure of, I don't want to show up without having this thing done that I'm supposed to have done. I got to get this done. It's very important to have a little bit of pressure. Necessity is key.
Exactly. Even if we're not really, when we first started doing this stuff, we used to have the wheel of shame. If you didn't meet your goals for the week, you got the wheel of shame, and it was like a whole pinwheel type of thing. Carnival thing is like, get a picture with something, you have to go out and tell somebody you didn't make your goals, or it was something stupid and fun as when we began. But as we got more and more into this and more in depth, and our goals became more and more, we kind of let the wheel of shame go, and we just became more about talking. It's like, well, how can we more or less became into problem solvers? Like, okay, so I didn't get this far done. It's like, can you guys help me out and give me a couple different ideas on how to get through it for this week?
Yeah.
And then make some more goals.
Yeah. Well, and the people that are in the group are doing the same thing as you.
Right.
That's another important piece. A lot of us go to people for advice who don't necessarily have any expertise. All the people who told me podcasting was crazy and would never work, none of them were podcasters, which is so interesting when you think about it, right? It's like, well, how would you know? I guess you could be right, but you haven't done it, so you might not know.
Oh, absolutely. If I talk to a lot of my friends, when I went and told them I wrote a book, he's like, no, you didn't write a book. It's like, why would you write a book? I got the same thing. It's like
Yeah.
the 20 questions of why you should not write a book.
Yeah.
And there are five paragraph explanations for each of them.
Mm.
And they didn't pertain to anything. But when they read the book, they're like, okay, now I see why you did this.
Yeah.
I'm like, now it's like, when's your next book coming out?
That's powerful. Seeing is believing for many people. And again, there's nothing wrong for that. Nothing wrong with that. For many people, seeing is believing. And when they see what you're doing, they'll say, oh, you know what? Now that makes sense. But it's not for everybody. And to your point, there will be people who come around eventually.
Oh, they do. And if they don't, that's okay too, because it's not for them.
Yeah.
They'll just move along and
Yep.
you're not going to hurt my feelings about it. It's like, okay, you don't get this. Okay. We'll figure something else out. And if not, life happens.
Yeah. 100%. Life happens.
So, we did go to consistency. I'm looking at your website and whatnot, and there's a lot of different things that you offer and services and whatnot. What is your most prominent thing that you're good at?
Me
in your company?
specifically?
Yes.
Oh, man. I'm really good at podcasting in terms, not just the speaking aspect, but understanding how it all connects and titling episodes and understanding that. So I would say my expertise really is podcasting and podcast coaching. That's where I spend the majority of my time.
Okay. What's your least? Or what's the one you... yes. Of course we have.
Of course.
Like a normal interview. We got to have the good and the bad here.
Of course. What is my least?
Or the one that you cringe, it's like, oh, you got to go do this. Or it's like, oh, okay, well, it just kind of gets moved down the list of things to do.
I don't enjoy being on social media, but that's not necessarily because I'm not good at it. It's just one of those things. I would say the thing that I quote unquote dislike the most, or I struggle with the most, is probably the vision side of things. I'm an operator. I'm really good at like, get these 10 things done. I'll lock myself in a room and do them. But when it comes to innovating, that's not necessarily my strong suit. My strong suit is getting trains going, not necessarily improving them as they go. That's Alan and I's running joke. I'll get a bunch of trains going. They'll be on the tracks and they'll be moving. But unless Alan comes in and starts shining up the tracks and putting new engines in, they only get so far.
Okay. All right. So that's another thing where a partnership does come into play. You play on each other's, strengths and weaknesses.
Yes.
That doesn't have to necessarily be all business. That's everywhere in life. That's for your friends, your family, your support group, people that aren't in your support group, but kind of want to be in your support group type of thing going on.
Yeah.
It's amazing how many different people you meet doing this.
Yeah. We've met a lot of interesting, there's been a lot of interesting people. There's been a lot of interesting experiences. There's been a lot of lessons. It's the podcast specifically, you get the opportunity to talk to people you'd never talk to.
Right.
You just never, I was on a podcast earlier and the host advised royalty. Like that was one of his things. He was like, he lives in England and he's unreasonably successful and he's like in touch with royalty and the government. He advises them on certain things. And I was like, how did I get here? What is happening today? What a strange day.
Oh, I agree. Cause, it's amazing to find out when I promote the books on who actually picks it up. You never know who's going to actually read it, those emails that go out that are friends of friends of friends of friends. And I had the same thing. Is I was talking to this gentleman over in Great Britain or United Kingdom, whatever country you wish to call it. And it was the same thing. I didn't realize who he was till I looked him up. And then once I looked up who this person was, I'm like, he's a big deal over there.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's like, it is life-changing. And it puts yourself in the perspective is when you do quality work, you're getting quality results.
Yeah. It's interesting because I had really, this is weird. This was weird for me today. So at one point we reached out to a guy named Evan Carmichael. He's very big on YouTube. Evan Carmichael's like, he's the 10 lessons guy. He does videos on like 10 lessons from Bill Gates, 10 lessons. And I think he's got like 3 million subscribers on YouTube or something.
Oh my.
Yeah. Yeah. He's very, very successful. Spoken with Tony Robbins and a great guy behind the scenes. So I don't know, maybe 3 years ago, we reached out and said, hey, we'd love to interview you. Like, can you make time for us? We'd love to interview you. And he's like, yeah, I'll make time for you guys. I'll come on. I'll give you guys 20 minutes. And he ended up staying for an hour, which is great. He sent me a video today. He sent me a video and said, congrats on 1,000 episodes, man. We should do another episode. And it's like, that's so weird. It's so weird that at one point I was like, there's no way this dude is going to come on our show. And now he's kind of like a friend who, we're not like super tight, but he DM'd me and said, hey, let's do 1,000 episode celebration. That'd be awesome. But that speaks to your point, Magnus, of when you focus on the work and you focus on the value and you focus on the quality and you focus on the mastery and you focus on investing in yourself, people, not everybody,
No,
but the
you're
right people will recognize that. And they'll say, there's something different about Magnus from the last time I saw him, or there's something different about this podcast or this business or whatever it is. People can recognize it. Real recognize real. That's what they mean when they say that. It's your people will recognize it.
Okay. And, and as we're going through this journey, we may be on the same journey at some point right now. Right now, we're actually on the same journey because we're giving the great content to both listeners, both groups.
Mm-hmm.
But the old adage was iron sharpens iron.
Yeah.
I'm getting better from this. You're getting better from this. And the people that are benefiting the most are our listeners.
Mm. Yeah.
It's really amazing when you sit down and actually think about this. We're actually touching people around the world. And not just,
is that weird to think about?
It's very weird because I still had contemplation issues when I was actually approached for the radio show. And I'm sure you did once you started going global. It's like, because I honestly thought about not doing it.
Mm.
Because like you had before, it's like, well, why would I do this? What if it fails? What if the what ifs and it could be or should be and all that stuff started coming into play.
Yeah.
But then I sat, I calmed my mind down. I meditated. I was listening to some music, and I found out that the one point and one thought that kept coming into my mind is, when's another opportunity like this going to come my way?
Yeah.
I'm like, this is special. I'm like, and I actually had to sit and talk with one of my coaches during my my writing classes, and I had to talk to him about it because I called him up. It's like, I had his phone number and everything. I called him up after hours and I talked to him about this, and we were on Zoom as we are right now, and his face just went from, your background is blue, if you can normal or normal color and everything, it was as white as the clouds in my background. Because I have the background from the Bahamas still, and his face was that white, and he didn't know what to say or actually how to mentor me on how this. He actually had to take some time to get back and talk to other coaches to come back and tell me, hey, this is what we talked about. It's like, but it's ultimately our decisions to choose what we do.
Yeah.
On anything that we do here, and I decided to go for it. And the validation that you were seeking before at the edge of your bed is I was seeking for that as well.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say it's one of those things where I still get scared.
Oh yes.
I want to make sure I share that because I think people, 1,000 episodes, and I still have moments where I get on the mic and it's like, you can shake off the cobwebs here. You've done this however many times. I get imposter syndrome every so often when I'm going on a big show or we're interviewing a big guest. I still get it. So I think it's important. The importance of action is just so underrated, as long as you can control the emotions when you get the reaction.
And, not ignoring our emotions.
Yes.
That's one of the things that a lot of people do. They'll just stuff them down. It's not healthy. And we end up later on either exploding or making very bad emotional decisions with money or with food or with our time, if you will.
Yeah.
I found that out personally, and I'm sure you've seen that through your rise.
Yeah. For me, I think it's one of those things where specifically when it comes to just the amount of work, I emotionally know when I'm getting burnt out, but sometimes I'll try to logic myself out of it and just say, you're fine. You're fine. You're fine. You're fine. And again, that's just me listening to, I emotionally, I knew I was burning out. I just kept pushing it. Now I know, okay, look, these are the signs when your body tells you this and you emotionally feel this way. If you feel depressed, it's probably because something's off.
Right.
Maybe
You're
I'm not
missing
filling my
something.
cup. Yes. Right. I'm not as well-rounded as I should be. That's what it is. I'm not pouring into the right cups. Maybe I've poured more into the podcast business cup than I have relationship and health. Okay, cool. Right. That's why we talk about health, wealth, and love. Because
Right.
if you can raise all three at the same time, I think that's the way to really be more fulfilled.
Okay. That's excellent. That brings me to my point is, everybody talked about work-life balance.
Mm.
There's no such thing. You always make it. You are the person that makes the choice whether it goes to work or if it goes to life.
Mm.
What are your thoughts on that
Yeah.
as a whole?
It's a great question. It's controversial, I would say, at times. The way I try to live it is I try to break it into percentages. So 80% work, 20% R&R. So you
Okay.
figure, I sleep 8 hours, so there's 16 hours. So 20% of that's what, 3.2 hours out of the day I'm R&Ring, the rest I'm working. And I think that's it's probably 90-10, honestly. Like a night like tonight, I'll be done around 6:30. I'll go to
Okay.
bed at 9. So what's that, 2.5 hours? That's kind of routine for me. Yeah. So I think that's probably 90%, 10% works for me. But I think everybody's a little bit different. In the beginning,
Right.
it was probably 50-50.
Okay.
Then it went 60-40. Then it went 70-30. So yeah, just make sure you're filling both buckets at the rate at which they need to be filled for sustainability.
I completely agree with that. You made excellent and valid points for everything, and everybody does have differences.
Yes.
Everybody's life is different. Everybody's situation is different.
Yeah.
It's not my main thing with doing this, especially when I used to ask that question all the time with the 9 to 5, and I quit asking it because I never got an answer to it on how to actually adjust my time accordingly.
Yeah.
Because my managers would always slate towards the business side of work, and my family side and life side would always push towards the family, and that's why I quit doing that. I start living in the gray. It's
Yeah.
like,
It's hard when you're doing something for somebody else because they kind of have the last call, which makes it challenging. That's a real challenge. I mean, when you're making your own schedule,
right.
it's easier. But when that's the importance of boundaries, especially if you're virtual. That's something I think we're going to see. That'll be the next kind of wave is virtual people who are working virtually. They'll have to start setting boundaries of, well, just because I'm not at the office and I have my laptop does not mean I'm accessible. That's going to be the next wave because most people haven't worked from home for that long. And this is a whole new thing, and new things create new problems.
Oh, absolutely. Especially when it's 5 feet away from your couch.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
going there. It's like, oh, well, I'll just log in real quick and do this.
Yeah.
10 minutes turns into 2 hours.
Yeah.
And then, kids or your significant others asking, it's like, where's dinner at? It's
Yeah.
like, oh no. But work is happy because you got all the work done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's such an interesting, to your point, it's not balance. It's prioritization. It's boundaries. It's a lot. There's a lot that goes into that. It's not as simple as work-life balance. It's a great point.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. And now, how do you coach that when you do your seminars and when you're talking to your clients and whatnot? How do you approach that topic?
From what I've seen, it usually goes one of two ways. People are underworking or overworking. Really.
Okay.
And that's what I've seen. And we coach a lot of dream chasers. So it's usually people very early entrepreneurs.
Okay.
And
Okay.
it's one of those things of, it usually starts with, where are you getting your advice? Are you getting your advice from the person who says you have to work 24 hours a day? Or are you getting your advice from the person who says, well, you only work when you feel like it? The truth is somewhere in the middle. So it's usually just raising the awareness to, okay, if you work the way you're working now forever, blank will happen.
Okay.
If you change things and you prioritize your health, you prioritize your relationship, then this is going to change. So yeah, for me, I consider going to the gym work. That's part of my 13, 14, 15-hour day, whatever it is, because I'm working on myself, which is going to make me healthy, which is going to bring more energy to the business. My relationship, I don't consider it work, but I consider it part of my habits to make sure I'm doing my nightly gratitudes. Like I consider that work because it's something I'm measuring. I'm measuring that. So I think that if you can bring your entire life together, to our point earlier, you have to treat your life like a business. That's what I would say is, okay, what are we doing when it comes to health? What are we doing when it comes to wealth? And what are we doing when it comes to love? When people think business, entrepreneurship, they think wealth. I'm
Yes.
making calls. This is my KPIs. This is what I'm learning. When's the last time you ate something healthy and rehydrated and got enough sleep? When's the last time you went on a date night with your partner? Those things add up, and I think they're more important than people give credit to.
Oh, I agree. I thoroughly and 100%. Oh, these are definitely overlooked things, and quite a few shows before touched on a little bit here and there, but you put everything, the whole like 7 episodes all in one in like 2 minutes, which is it's fantastic because because the reason why I labeled this episode Rising from the Ashes is because you've been there, you've been in the ashes.
Yeah.
And you're rising now and you're
Yeah.
continuing to rise.
Yeah. I appreciate that.
And that's one of the reasons after reading what you've done and what you've gone through and what we've talked about today is, we're the ones that set the expectations. We're the ones that set the goals. We put the ceilings on, if you will.
Yeah. It's one of those things you got to be very careful where you're putting the ceiling.
And if it's a glass ceiling or if it's a solid color ceiling.
Yeah.
Because glass ceilings are the most dangerous ones of all.
Yeah, you got to be very careful, very mindful, very aware.
Absolutely. And well, people, I can probably see the listeners are like, well, what's a glass ceiling? It's like it's a ceiling that you can see the other side of, just like a piece of glass, but instead of it going up and up towards where you're going, it's actually coming down towards you and making you go into a little box. Did I explain that right?
I think there's 2 frames. I think that could be one frame, but I think there's another thought process that a glass ceiling is one that you can smash and then move beyond. So I think it depends on the frame.
Okay. I like that. I haven't considered that. I always figured it was getting boxed in and whatnot.
I think it's like a breakthrough.
Okay.
Like break through the glass ceiling, I think.
Which would take you to the next level.
To the next level. Well done, sir. Well done.
And speaking of that is, we are almost at the end of our show.
Yeah.
It's sad to say is I would love to sit here and talk another hour with you about this because we're just scratching the surface of this. And but we've talked about your past, how you went from a teenager, you graduated high school, you got a job, and you got promoted in that job to foreman, to traveling, living out of a suitcase, going down to your dark areas. It's like, well, I don't want to do this anymore, and I don't want to do anything anymore, and then you started your own business, which is amazing, and you just hit 1,000 episodes and going further than you've ever thought, which is ridiculous. And my question to you is, how can our listeners get more in touch with you or learn more about you and follow up if they want to continue what they like, what they learn, and continue on?
I appreciate that. I appreciate the kind words as well. I always suggest the podcast. Listening to the podcast is the best place because you'll get to know us at a deep level, and we're in your pocket every day. So Next Level University, we're on all the major podcast platforms, and all of our episodes are on YouTube. And then if you want to reach out to me, my handle is Never Quit Kid, at Never Quit Kid on Instagram. I do my own social media, and I would love to get to know you.
Oh, fantastic on that. I appreciate the time that you've taken, Kevin, and it's amazing to talk to everybody that comes on to the show, because I know you're taking time out of your busy schedules to give these listeners some great content, and I really appreciate that.
Likewise. I appreciate you. I appreciate the questions. I can't believe it went by as fast as it did, but I'm grateful we got the time that we did.
Oh, same here. Actually is, as we're wrapping up here, I have like 2 minutes and we're going through. Sorry about that. And, I hope to have you on the show in the future.
Please.
We'll talk later again about this later. But everybody out there, thank you for tuning in. This is Kevin Palmieri with Next Level University, entrepreneur, co-founder, and co-host of his podcast. And I'll have the show links into his social media into after the show stuff. We're going to cut for today, And next week's show is we're going to be talking to Eric Smolinski, and we're going to hear about his journey as well and his tidbits, what he's learned from going from military to civilian life and how he didn't transform. And Kevin, thank you once again. And, I know you have another meeting, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Magnus. I hope you stay well and keep crushing it, my friend.
Thank you kindly, sir.
I'll talk to you soon, okay?
All right. We'll do.
All right. Thank you.
You are clear, gentlemen.